freedom isn't free, and the cost is not just somebody going somewhere and serving in the military. It sure as hell isn't putting a fucking flag out in front of your yard. Um, but it's going to cost something. It does cost something, and if we don't pay the cost, we will lose it. Okay, and the thing is that in a lot of ways, our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution were aspirational. Okay, the pursuit, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that was still isn't guaranteed to many people. Okay, and if you think, oh no, it generally was, well, it was generally was maybe if you're white, right? But in 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 people still living's lifetime, uh, the U.S. has been incredibly racist and has had laws that were incredibly racist. And there are still, I know people that are younger than me that know about a sundown town. If you don't know what a sundown town is, Google it. But it basically means if you're black, don't be in that town after dark. Okay. And there are still places that are like that in the U.S. Now, you might, some I'm sure might try to diminish and say that's just some places, but we can see with ICE and Border Patrol right now that if you're just not white, you have less rights than everybody else. That stuff is currently going on. And my point is that I am not trying to put a burden on anybody, but what I am trying to encourage everybody to do is just to realize that there is a cost, and it's being educated about civics. It's being educated about what's going on in the news. It's about voting. It is about understanding who this, like what the various, there's certain political groups that try to act like the government can never do anything good. And they're like, oh, small government, the government always does terrible things. Do you know what the government does? Do you know what the organization that they're advocating abolishing, do you know what that organization does? Because Doge and Elon Musk didn't. And they fucked around with it, and they found out that it was not a good idea, right? Cutting funding to, to cancer research. Another one that has come up, right, with the American aid, right, U.S. aid, right, is what the organization I believe is called. U.S. aid. The reason, and it's just trying to understand this, like why would we give things like condom to places in Africa? Why would we give food assistance? Why would we give all this assistance to various places? Let's just pick Africa as an example, where a lot of U.S. aid. The reason we did that, guys, is because several reasons, depending on the exact place. Okay, one of the things we wanted to do, if we didn't do it, then we knew that our enemies would, particularly China in this particular case. And the reason they're trying to do that is because they want to be able to have friendly relationship with those countries. Okay. At the risk of grossly simplifying it, it's a game of risk. Okay. And we're all trying to move and have different allies and be able to put pieces on the board in different places. And that's part of the way how we do that. And we looked at it and we go, oh, all we got to do is give them food. Well, we have a lot of food. We can produce a lot of food. This is a relatively cheap thing. And then another big part of this, which is done when these things are being planned, is looking at the cost benefit analysis. Guys, this is not out of the goodness of our hearts. We look at it and we go, well, we can give them aid now and it's going to cost us X amount of dollars, or we can not do it and we can have a problem that's going to cost us 10 times that much in the future. And we know that because we've had this happen before. So let's pay the cheap cost now and gain the power, gain the influence. And sometimes it's for those reasons. Other times it is because, like, hey, if there's a crisis in another country, we know that we'll have an immigration problem here. Because those people will flee that country, and a lot of them are going to come here, and then we're going to have to spend more money on border and customs patrol, right? We're going to have to spend more money on that. So it would actually be cheaper for us to help stabilize or help make sure that country is okay. And that's literally why we do it. So you can look at the various situations. You might agree or disagree with some or what have you, but just you need to understand this is part of the cost of freedom. It's to be informed and to understand what is actually going on. And if you see something, and if somebody is telling you that they're doing it for some insane reason, question that. question why is that really, if it sounds crazy, maybe it is. Maybe we're if you look at it and you're like, why it seems crazy. Why the hell are we providing this, food assistance when we have people here who are starving? Well, we're doing it because we get more out of it than it costs us. That's why we're doing it. And the fact that we've, why do we have allies? Because we need them. It's better to have them than to not have them. And so understanding this stuff, like, why the hell would we invade Greenland? We've had bases there. We've decommissioned them. They're just sitting there. We could go back. We can get mineral rights there if it's about rare earth metals. That they'll give us. Why do we need it? Well, there's no reason. There's no reason. Why would we invade Venezuela? Oil? It's not even good oil. No oil company wants to go there until there's a stable government. Just ask questions, guys, and just realize that there are just try your best to be informed, and try to be informed by multiple sides. I think that is one of the minimum costs, okay? And my point in all of this, to get back to Voss's excellent question, is like, what's my point in all of this? Is just to realize the cost of freedom isn't you or someone else going and serving in some foreign land and being really willing to die or risk everything for it. That is part of the cost. It is not the only cost. Every citizen it has to pay something. And I get it. If you're worried about food, clothing, and shelter, then how do you have time for most of this other stuff? I'm not trying to put more burdens. And I'm not saying everybody should go out and protest. I'm not saying everybody should strike. I'm not saying everybody should be an expert in civics, but something. We all have to pay the cost of freedom. We all have to pay. And the cost is much greater than we think. It's not just about sending soldiers somewhere. The cost is going to take our time. It's going to take some of our energy. And again, the alternative is much, much worse. And another thing about this is, as I often hear when we're talking about making social changes, and then I'll get back to these comments here. I often hear when we're talking about various social changes and everything, I've had people tell me, like, genuinely upset that, like, man, I wish we could provide healthcare for everybody, but we just can't afford it. And then they've even linked some study where they say, hey, here's how we can't afford it. Guys, one of the ways that can really help you with, like, the smell test, like, does this even pass the smell test, is if you look at other countries and see what they're doing. See what they're actually doing. Don't look at what some biased propaganda network is telling you. Go actually look and see what the people think, okay? And you'll find people with all different kinds of opinions. There is a lot of social safety in many other developed countries, really. But there are problems with that. There are issues. But the idea that if we're supposed to be the greatest country on earth, and we can't take care of our own people, like, how is that true? It's not true. It means that some of the people who already have a ridiculous amount of money and power would have a little bit less, and they don't want to give up any of it. There are people that the CEOs in the world, the United Healthcare, right, CEO, these guys, it's just never enough for them, and they will continue to take until you have nothing left if we let them. And again, that is what I'm telling you is doing something about some of this, getting involved some way. There are so many more of us than there are of them. We have the power. We can vote.